Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. So this video is going to be me discussing my reading year in 2023, and I will be discussing sort of my overall thoughts and feelings on the year for 2023, then getting into the crunchy numbers and the statistics portion, and then reflecting a little bit on my 2023 goals and how I did, and setting a couple goals for 2024. I will have everything time-stamped, so feel free to check out the doobly-doo and jump around if that's what you so desire. So overall for 2023, I felt like the reading year was kind of a mixed bag for me. I definitely started the year in well, I didn't know I was starting in a slump, but I definitely had a slump for the first couple of months of the year. And it was a long one for me. I just wasn't really enjoying what I was reading, and I didn't have the desire to read. I was just really frustrated. I made a couple videos where I was like, I'm in a slump, what do I do? And yeah, that was just not very fun. Ultimately, April was kind of the peak of that because I only read 4 titles in April, and I was enjoying some of the things that I managed to finish, but I also was DNFing very heavily. That I think started to kind of turn around a little bit because in May I took a trip to Alaska, and on that vacation I read 4 books. So I went from reading 4 in April to 4 in a week. And I think that that was, even though those individual books were not amazing, I think that that kind of restarted and jump-started my desire to read. And I went into the summer feeling a little uplifted and hopeful. And I think over the course of the summer, I did also start rereading some titles, and that helped because I was able to visit some books that I knew that I was going to like, books that I knew what emotions were I was going to get out of that. So that was great. And ultimately I ended the summer and started going into the fall with much more happiness in what I was reading, and really kind of settled into some good titles. And I was really excited for the fall and the paranormal romance that was coming up and ahead of me. And then, yeah, I feel that I actually kind of finished the year relatively strongly because in the last couple months of the year, I read a lot of very swoony and emotional romances that were fantastic. I read my first beta read title and found this whole zombie romance series that I liked. And yeah, I think I did kind of turn around a little bit at the end of 2023. And somehow I was doing something right because this year was the highest of my overall star rating that I have had since my time starting here on BookTube. Still, my average for the year is only a 3.65 star rating, but I think that's pretty good. I think that's quite good, actually. I'm pleased with that number. So, time for the stats and the crunchy numbers portion. Ultimately, based on how I track things, I'm going to go ahead and just say that I read 99 books, 100 books for the year of 2023. That is that I finished 99 titles. I did DNF 24 titles, which is higher than the last couple of years. And ultimately, the format breakdown, these are the crunchy numbers. I'm going to run right through these. The format breakdown of everything that I read this year was 4 books physically, 35 books I listened to the audiobook, and then 60 were ebooks, 35 of which were Kindle Unlimited titles. So I definitely feel that I'm getting my money's worth on that service, which is exciting and good. Ultimately, all of the total pages that I read, I estimated to be about 36,600. And this is obviously lower than last year because I read fewer total titles than I did in 2022. So, oh, and I will say that of the total number of books that I managed to finish, I did reread 15 of those. So about 15% of what I read was something that was a reread for me. The genre breakdown is very similar to previous years. My genre breakdown was the highest in romance, which was 69%. Then there was the next highest percentage was sort of general fiction, and that was 13%, followed up by science fiction / fantasy at 9%, and then a few thriller mystery / maybe a couple horrors throw in there. I only finished 2 manga titles and 1 nonfiction title this year, which is not great. I definitely had more nonfiction in the past, but I was DNFing a lot of nonfiction this year. So my DNFs fall out in a very similar proportion genre breakdown wise, but I'm not really sure what was going on there. So that is the crunchy numbers. I will also put a chart up here of the total number of books that I read each month and what the page count was in a nice little bar graph. The highest number of books that I finished in one month was 14, which was in the month of October, and then the highest number of pages that I finished in one month or read in one month was June. So yeah, I hope that scratches the itch for all of the math that you are interested in for the year. But the last little section I'm going to talk about is a reflection on my goals. At the start of 2023, I set a few goals, which included one, to read 100 books, and I'm going to go ahead and say I did that. And my second goal was to mood read more. I felt that set TBRs had kind of hindered me at the end of 2022. And I'm going to say that I generally did do this, especially to get out of my slump in 2023. I had to work really hard at following where my mood was taking me. And I was DNFing so much because I was following my moods. And then my third goal for 2023 was to read more of the books that I highly anticipated, because I was finding that I was leaving things on my TBR for a while and then not circling back around to them until they were kind of like older or I was no longer as interested. And I did okay on this. I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the mood reading. I would say that a number of the books that I read this year were ones that had been highly recommended to me, and I did get to them and was happy with. But I also just kind of mood read and read weird books all over the place. So I did okay on that goal. And then the last one that I set was to increase my genre diversity, by which I meant read more broadly than just have romance, and read more thrillers, read more nonfiction. And I didn't really do that. Mostly there was no change in some of those smaller genres, but I definitely did read more romance this year percentage wise than I did in 2022. So I'm going to say I didn't really accomplish that goal, but I think part of that goes, again, hand in hand with mood reading, and I just really wanted some romances, and that's where I was led to go, and that's what I went with. So as for goals for 2024, I have set my Goodreads goal for 2024 to be at 52. I have a feeling that, like most years here, I can probably accomplish 100-ish. That's what I've been managing for the last number of years. It'd be really nice to just like hit my Goodreads goal midway through the year, and so I set it at one book a week at 52, and I might up that depending on how quickly I can accomplish that. But I don't want any internal pressure, which I did have a little bit in 2023. So my second goal is kind of a reflection on the 2023 goals, which is that I want to keep on doing the things that I said a minute ago. I want to keep on mood reading. I want to keep on prioritizing some of my most highly anticipated reads. I want to continue DNFing books when they're not working for me. All of those things I think helped in 2023, and that's what I want to carry into for 2024. The last two goals that I'm setting for 2024 are relatively new for me, which is I would like to find at least 3 5-star reads. I would love if every single book I read in 2024 was a 5-star read, but that is completely unrealistic. And I did not hand out very many 5 stars in 2023. And so I would like to find at least 3 very top fave, amazing titles in 2024. And my last goal that I'm going to discuss is that I would like to increase some of that genre diversity, especially in the area of nonfiction, translated works, and poetry. I don't think I've ever read poetry here on this channel. Maybe just like a smidgen. It's not something I know very much about. It's not something that I have read very much of, and I would like to change that. I would like to work on that. And I was kind of disappointed this year that so many of my DNFs were nonfiction titles, but I think that I have learned about myself that I'm not terribly interested in memoirs, and I think I need to reflect on the narrative nonfiction that was working really well for me a few years ago and kind of sink back into those roots. So there you have some of my thoughts and feelings on 2023. I was going to do sort of my best and worst of the year in this video, but I think I'm going to go ahead and do those in separate videos. At least I'm going to do one video where I'm just gushing over some of my top reads of the year and a number of honorable mentions. And then I do have a video that I was promising for like the entirety of 2023 where I already have it all typed up and ready to go. I have a video where I'm going to talk about the 24 DNFs from 2023. And I think I will discuss maybe 2 or 3 titles that I wish I would have maybe DNF just because those were some of my lowest rated of the year. But stay tuned for either of those videos. Let me know how many books that you read or a fun goal that you have for 2024 down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.